Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It has been a hot minute since I recorded something for this channel. Essentially, the last 2 weeks of my life have been really chaotic, hectic. I became distracted by some things in my life, and essentially my routines, all my little rituals, everything, my self-care as a whole totally went out the window. Essentially got to a point where I began feeling this sensation of just being so drained, not feeling like myself. I'm saying all of this for a reason because it's a segue into the topic of the video, okay? But yeah, that's where I've been. So I wanted to make a video about it because in coming back to my routines and my little rituals and just coming back to myself, this time I think it truly solidified for me finally the importance of doing these routines and rituals and little habits, not because I want to be the best version of myself, not because I even want to embody the highest version of myself in terms of like a goal to achieve or in terms of tasks on a to-do list to check off, but rather the only reason for wanting to do these things being because they feel good and they bring me back to myself and they bring me naturally back to feeling like my highest self and my most aligned self, and choosing to do these habits for that reason and for no other reason. And it's a simple concept, but I wanted to make a video on it for myself and for anybody watching because I have felt it so strongly. Like, even as I'm standing here, I still feel honestly completely drained. And I know the only reason I feel that way is because in the last couple weeks, I allowed myself to deprioritize myself. I allowed things to slip through the cracks, all the while I actively knew that that was a disservice to myself. At a certain point, it becomes so evident that you can't ignore it anymore. And for majority of my life, until like this year, honestly, I have always been someone who goes to the gym and who eats healthy and takes my supplements and meditates and journals and yada, 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 all of these things. But the biggest reason that I would do these things was for various different goals of mine, right? For example, in the past, I had a really high cortisol and I have PCOS, and bringing your cortisol down as a woman with PCOS is very important. But rather than me interpreting that message as, okay, cortisol is correlated with stress, let's do everything we can do to feel good and to de-stress our minds and bodies, rather than me interpreting it that way, I took it as, okay, let me figure out how I can perfectly embody somebody who lowers their cortisol, how I can perfectly achieve all of these tasks that you're supposed to do in order to lower your cortisol. You see the difference? Like, I was turning everything into a to-do list. Even if the thing to do was to care for myself and to lower my stress levels, I turned it into a to-do list, which then in turn just made it something stressful, because the issue with doing it that way is that when you fall off of your routines, you just feel guilty about yourself. You feel like you've let yourself down because you have turned these things that are supposed to just be things that fill your cup and nourish yourself into tasks and into things correlated with your value as a person. Like, I began seeing these tasks of caring for myself, like meditating and going to the gym and whatever, as things I must do every single day in order to maintain my value as a human being, versus the way of simply doing things because they feel good and because you love and care for yourself, and going to the gym because that's what your body is craving and you want to listen to that. Like, it is such a different approach because one places your value in doing those habits and routines, and therefore if you don't do them, you feel you are losing value as a person, which is not true, obviously. The second approach, the more intuitive approach of just listening to what your body needs and desires and wants in any given moment, that has absolutely nothing to do with your value as a human being. It is merely you listening to what feels good and then following through with that because you love and care about yourself, not because you have set a certain standard for yourself that you need to achieve or else you are losing value, right? It is so different, and it sounds like a small mental shift, but the impact it has also on your body is so huge. When you place your worth and value in the things you do, whether that's how you show up at work, in relationships, in the way you care for yourself, when you start placing your value in these things that you do, that just makes your entire existence conditional. the idea of you being a deserving, worthy person becomes conditional, which is ridiculous because the reality of things is that we all are inherently worthy and deserving of anything we could ever want or desire in our lives just for existing, right? We don't need to do anything to earn these things. Truly getting these things is more so about peeling back the layers of any limiting beliefs we have that tell us why we can't have those things right now. Because the reality is we can have those things right now should we just allow ourselves to remember and realize that we are inherently worthy in every given moment, right? And so the language we use with ourselves matters. If you are telling yourself that you must do X, Y, and Z and show up in this way, and that if you don't show up in this way, you are losing value as a person, even if you have good intentions, even if your intention begins with, I want to do this to become a better version of myself, it's so important to be careful with the language we're using, because it is so easy to convince ourselves that we're doing something out of love for ourselves, when in reality we're doing it again in a way that's falling into the trap of feeling the need to be a certain way in order to prove to ourselves that we are worthy of something. And so the language is important of, am I going to the gym because it feels good and my body is craving it and I want to honor that? Or am I going to the gym because if I don't go to the gym, I'm gonna feel like shit about myself? Small mental shift, but it matters. And I truly believe that if we perpetuate these negative ways of speaking to ourselves over a long period of time, that also ironically then has physical detrimental impacts in our body. Like when we hold these stressors and these beliefs that we must be a certain way and we must achieve certain things and we must go to the gym this many times per week, whatever it is, when we hold those pressures we put on ourselves within our body, that accumulates over time to become illness and diseases and overall just tension in the body, right? Whereas if we practice that same thing, maybe it is going to the gym a certain amount of times per week, but practicing it from a place of it just feels good, so I want to do it, you're not storing this pressure and tension within your body because your worth and value is no longer correlated with the things we're doing. And I felt that heavily this time around with this little cycle that I had, because I did go so far off of my routine. Like usually when I have a little slip up, it'll be kind of a few days here and there that I'll get into a rut and I won't go to the gym. But even in those ruts, often I'll still be doing at least some journaling or some meditating or some breath work, something to always recenter myself, at least in a small way every day. But these last couple weeks, it was like totally, like everything went out the window, okay? And it was a good thing. It is a good thing that I was distracted by, but it completely took me away from myself. And it so decentered me. And I did not prioritize myself enough to set boundaries when it comes to these things I normally do to care for myself. So I was like so far off my path, even more than I normally am when I get into ruts, like I said, which is a normal, natural thing that happens, is the ebb and flow of getting into ruts, getting out of ruts, and constantly picking ourselves back up and coming back to ourselves and caring for ourselves, right? This time I just veered really far off the path. And so also because of how dramatic that was, the coming back to myself was also very dramatic and very paradigm shifting, I guess you could say, because this time, because it was so dramatic, it cemented in my brain. Sorry, someone is texting me. I need to wrap this video up. What was I saying? Yeah, this time around, it was so dramatic, the coming back to myself, that it just absolutely cemented in my brain that these rituals and habits and routines are an absolute necessity for me, an absolute necessity when it comes to honoring my body and my soul and my mind and just myself. It is not merely tasks on a to-do list because I want to be a certain version of myself. It is a necessity that just comes with the choice of choosing to live life to feel good. When you choose to live life for yourself to just feel good, you can't not then also choose to partake in those routines and rituals and habits, because living in a misaligned way, the definition of living in a misaligned way is to abandon those intuitive nudges that you do feel to maybe move your body, to meditate, whatever. it's a natural thing that occurs when you choose to prioritize yourself and to care for yourself first. And this time just really cemented that like, in essence, innately, I believe that we know how to take care of ourselves and we know how to listen to that intuition. It's more so that we've been taught to not listen to that intuition and to not listen to our bodies. And we need to kind of reteach ourselves how to come back to that. And the way this society is constructed, a lot of the time, it's a very twisted, construed way that we're taught to come back to that, which is that version of making a to-do list and trying to become the David Goggins of it all. You know what I mean? While that's a beautiful intention, because it does come from a place of wanting to care for yourself, it's a twisted way of getting back to that innate place of caring for yourself. You don't need to make a to-do list to do it all. All you have to do is listen to your mind and body and do it. And it begins with truly loving yourself, truly listening to yourself, and honoring that. And that's all I'll say. I hope everything I said made sense. That's gonna be everything for this video because I am meeting somebody at Union Station soon and they're texting me. So with all that being said, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me. If you made it to this point in the video, leave down below a butterfly emoji. And I love you. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one. Bye.